This is a true story. In the year 2000, a diver descended into the depths of a blue hole. Take a close look. It's 1705. He glided past the last diver. The camera was sinking fast. The person filming seemed to sense danger, but he couldn't call for help. The last diver had his back turned. He never saw the cameraman. At that moment, the camera tilted toward the surface. Sunlight streamed down like a tunnel, but the pull of the abyss quickly dragged the camera back toward the deep. The cameraman's breathing grew heavy. You could feel his tension. Then, a sudden burst of static. The blue hole's walls appeared in the frame. It seemed like he was trying to grab onto the rocky surface, but he failed. The camera kept sinking. Just a few seconds passed, but the light was already fading fast. 1708. The cameraman glanced at his depth gauge, 81 meters, 266 feet. Then a sound, half gasp, half scream, like pure terror. The descent continued. Could he save himself? Welcome to Enigma Files. Today, we're diving into this incident to explore the true horror of deep-sea diving, the blue hole. The blue hole in this story is Blue Hole Dahab, often called the Diver's Cemetery. Located on the Red Sea coast of Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, it is terrifyingly close to shore. No boats needed, no deep-sea expeditions. Just put on your gear, step into the water, even if it's your very first dive. What exactly is a blue hole? A blue hole is one of the rarest geological wonders of the ocean. Most of them formed during the last ice age, when sea levels were much lower than today. Imagine an ancient limestone cave, or even a meteorite crater on land. As the ice melted and the sea levels rose, the cave roof collapsed, filling the entire structure with seawater. This process created a striking contrast between the shallow waters surrounding the hole and the deep abyss within. From the surface, the difference is dramatic. Outside the hole, the water is a vibrant turquoise, while inside, it turns into an inky, bottomless blue. Because Blue Hole Dahab is so easy to access, it became the first blue hole ever explored by divers. In fact, the term blue hole itself originates from this very site. If you mention the blue hole among divers, they'll assume you mean this one, the infamous Dahab blue hole. Over time, divers have discovered about a dozen blue holes worldwide. Some of the most famous include the Great Blue Hole, the largest blue hole, located off the coast of Belize in the Caribbean. Dean's Blue Hole, once the deepest, reaching 202 meters, 663 feet, found in the Bahamas. Dragon Hole, the current deepest known blue hole, located in the South China Sea, reaching a staggering 301 meters, 987 feet. If you line them up side by side, Blue Hole Dahab would look rather unremarkable. But in reality, it's the deadliest of them all. How did Blue Hole Dahab form? The truth is, no one really knows. Locals believe it was created by an iron meteorite that crashed into the Earth. But scientists disagree. They argue that the shape of the entrance does not resemble a typical impact crater. Instead, it looks more like the remains of an ancient underwater cave. However, the cave theory has its own problems. It still fails to explain some of the strange structures inside the blue hole. If we break down the cross-section of Blue Hole Dahab, it looks something like this. At the outermost edge, there's a 6-meter, 20-foot deep depression known as a saddle. If a diver crosses the saddle, they enter the open sea, where the underwater cliff plunges to depths exceeding 1,000 meters, 3,280 feet. The deepest point of the blue hole itself reaches approximately 120 meters, 394 feet. Between 53 meters, 174 feet, and 120 meters, 394 feet, there's a horizontal tunnel-like opening that connects the blue hole to the open sea. This tunnel, known as the Arch, has a 26-meter, 85-foot thick ceiling and faces southeast, allowing sunlight to shine through. Diving here is a surreal experience. As you pass through the archway, the light filtering in from above makes it feel as if you're bathed in a divine glow. Because of this, divers refer to it as the underwater cathedral. Swimming through it is an otherworldly experience, like stepping into a sacred realm beneath the waves. About 200 meters, 656 feet, northeast of Blue Hole, there is another dive site called El Bells, a vertical chimney-like tunnel that serves as an entry point for divers, especially beginners. Once fully geared up, you can jump in and let El Bells take you on a slow descent, like an elevator dropping into the abyss. As you descend, you'll see soft corals clinging to the walls and schools of colorful fish weaving through the currents. Around 30 meters, 98 feet deep, you'll pass through an archway, and suddenly, the view opens up. You're now outside the reef wall, in the open ocean. From here, divers drift along the coral-covered cliffside in an exhilarating drift dive. Eventually, they return to the 6-meter, 20-foot saddle at the Blue Hole's entrance. For those who are skilled and daring, there's another option. You can dive deeper and re-enter the underwater cathedral, making your way back into the Blue Hole against the sunlight. Unlike many open-sea dives, there are no strong currents in the Blue Hole. There are no sharks, and the cave walls provide a sense of tranquility and protection. It feels as safe as swimming in a pool. But beneath this peaceful illusion lurks a deadly trap. When you arrive at the shoreline of the Blue Hole, you typically gear up at the parking area and walk a short distance to El Bells, the dive entry point. Along the way, you will pass a haunting site, a cliffside covered in memorial plaques. Each plaque represents a diver who never made it back. According to estimates, between 130 and 200 divers have lost their lives here in recent decades. But because there are no official records, the actual number may be even higher. One man who knows this all too well is Tariq, a local Bedouin diver from Egypt. Since the 1990s, he has been involved in most of the body recovery missions at the Blue Hole. He recalls that the death toll became so overwhelming that, at one point, he stopped counting. He even stopped trying to remember the names of the victims. It was too painful. But in more than 20 years, there are two names he will never forget: Connor Oregon and Martin Garn. On November 19, 1997, Connor and Martin, aged 22 and 23, lost their lives in the Blue Hole. Tariq found them at 102 meters, 335 feet. They were holding each other in a final embrace. The investigation later revealed that they succumbed to nitrogen narcosis and oxygen toxicity. In their last moments, they lost consciousness together, never to wake again. April 28, 2000, Tariq pointed at another memorial plaque and said, "His story is well known now." He was referring to the person who shot the footage we saw at the beginning. At first, Yuri appeared near the water's surface, surrounded by other divers. The coral, fish, and shimmering water painted a bright, clear blue scene. Then, Yuri started adjusting his camera, seemingly fitting it with some kind of lens protector. The colors turned deep red and dark. Yuri was preparing to descend. That lens protector was designed to withstand water pressure at 75 meters, 246 feet, suggesting that Yuri was confident, at least confident enough to pass through the underwater cathedral. As he began his descent, he noticed two divers ahead of him. Their exhale bubbles were large and long, and they kicked in place as if engaged in conversation. Yuri swam past them effortlessly, leaving the novice divers behind. His gaze turned to the depths, where two even deeper streams of bubbles were rising. Without hesitation, he plunged toward them, into the pitch-black abyss. For the next 90 seconds, Yuri adjusted his gear and fiddled with his camera. At exactly 17 hours, 5 minutes, and 38 seconds, he reached the area above the deeper bubbles. By this time, something may have gone wrong with his equipment. He seemed to gesture toward the other diver as if seeking help, but his camera continued sinking rapidly, the screen growing noticeably darker. The camera captured the sheer underwater cliffs. Some speculate that Yuri was trying to grab onto the rock face in a desperate attempt to stop his fall. Others believe he was still unaware that his equipment was failing, continuing his descent with full confidence. Now, pay close attention to the changes in Yuri's breathing and the shifting light in the footage. What we see is the true Blue Hole. Another drop-off appears, and the camera glows with a reddish hue. We can hear Yuri's breathing, punctuated by what sounds like retching. Some say he was calling out in distress. Others even claim to hear him shouting, "Help!" Yet, the camera kept sinking faster and faster. The depth increased at an alarming rate. Soon, it passed the 56-meter, 184-foot limit. Sunlight disappeared. It was as if Yuri had downed an entire bottle of high-proof alcohol in just minutes. His brain was succumbing to nitrogen narcosis. At 17:08, Yuri checked his depth gauge. It read 81 meters, 266 feet. The Red Sea differs from other oceans. The water here is denser. The usual safe diving limit of 56 meters, 184 feet, could feel like only 40 meters, 131 feet. In Dahab's Blue Hole, if that assumption is correct, Yuri had already surpassed the safe limit by twice the threshold. Oxygen toxicity sets in without warning. Nitrogen narcosis had already dulled Yuri's senses. In the next few seconds, he appeared to look for a resting spot. Then we heard the sound of inflation, followed by a dull explosion. Immediately after, sand and debris clouded the camera view. The footage became shaky. His fins and other gear floated into the frame, disconnected from his body. At 17:11, the camera finally stopped moving. Then, abruptly, the footage cut off. May 3rd, 2000, the next frame showed two blurry figures flashing across the screen. Targ recounted that Yuri was only 22 years old. The day after he went missing, his parents rushed to Dahab. At his mother's desperate plea, Targ dived 115 meters, 377 feet, and found Yuri's body along with his equipment. On May 3rd, his camera was returned to his parents. When they tried to check its contents, they accidentally recorded that final scene. Yuri's footage stands as a silent warning, a stark reminder to all divers. The deep sea is as mysterious as it is ruthless. It is not a place for reckless arrogance. Humanity cannot afford to underestimate nature, because, in the grand scheme of things, we are truly insignificant.